Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. You're listening to a new The Hacker Factory podcast with hacker maker Phillip Wylie. You're about to discover what the role of a professional hacker entails, the different specializations it holds, and what it takes to learn and become one. Enjoy the conversation as Phillip and guests unveil the secrets of professional hacking, a mysterious, intriguing, and often misunderstood occupation. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hacker Factory podcast. I'm your host, Phillip Wylie, the Hacker Maker. And each episode I have someone from the security world that works in offensive cybersecurity, security research, bug bounty. And these stories are to help motivate you and inspire you to start your journey, or help you if you're already in the industry, kind of encourage you to work, work harder and achieve your goals and your dreams. And so this episode, I'm really happy to introduce John Hammond. He does great things for the community. He's a great content creator. He's some of the best videos out there on YouTube if you're wanting to learn how to do stuff. He's kind of like a master of the CTF stuff, CTF world, and very impressive. So it's an honor to have you on the show, John.
Well, hey, thank you so much, Phillip. I'm super flattered to be here, and thank you for the lovely introduction. Super excited. Chat about anything. I'm here for you, my friend.
Yeah, good to have you. I mean, we share a passion with helping others. And so that's one of the things I like, because you're genuine in you're helping other people. And that's very relevant, reflected in all you do. So, some people may have not heard of you. They're just getting started in the industry. But would you mind introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about yourself to our listeners?
Totally. Absolutely. So, hey, hi, hello. My name is John Hammond. During the day, kind of for my day job, I work as a senior security researcher at a cybersecurity vendor and a software provider called Huntress that does managed threat detection and tries to hunt down hackers. In my spare time, what I have of it, right, I try to do some YouTube and some content creation. I like to host capture the flag events and bring training and education to the world, really the best that I can. But also try to do, some public outreach and engagement, whether it's podcasts like this or webinars or virtual events or things that I can do to just kind of be part of the culture, part of the scene. So super happy to be here.
Yeah, good to have you once again. And what all you do, thanks for what all you do for the community. So most people that watch this show are just getting started out, and the stories that the guests share on how they got started are very helpful. So could you share kind of your origin story, how you got started?
Ooh, yeah, I'd love to. I mean, so it's a little bit of a long-winded story. So if I'm rambling for too much, don't hesitate to cut me off here. But I'm a young dude, and hopefully that resonates, or at least kind of has some kinship to anyone listening in, that just feels like, hey, they're trying to get started. They're trying to find their footing in security. I feel like I grew up kind of like any kid might, and they say, hey, I want to make video games, or I want to be a hacker. And we all have the internet, right? We all have access to a computer, I would think. So back in the day, I would try to Google around and just research, hey, how to make video games, something as simple and as cheesy as that, or how to be a hacker. Somehow, I think I was lucky enough to stumble upon Eric S. Raymond, or one of his blogs that had said, like, hey, if you really have an interest in this, you need to learn how to program. You need to learn how to code. You need to learn how to script. And at the time, that had recommended Python as a language to, hey, cut your teeth on it, learn a little bit. And that really opened the floodgates, because, well, hey, if you want to do this, you should probably be in Linux. Hey, I wanted to get started in that operating system and learn about it. It's like, oh, cool. If I'm working with Linux, can I host a website? Can I have a server? And again, at a young age, my dad, super generous, kind of showed me the ropes with simple stuff like HTML and CSS, and like, hey, if you want to stand up a website, here's how you could do that, and here's that sort of thing. So for a long period of my life, probably like middle school, high school age, I was really interested in just how to create things, how to build and make stuff. And again, quote unquote video games, it sort of shifts as you start to play with it more. It wasn't until I got into kind of my undergraduate or university or college, I went to the United States Coast Guard Academy. So having a little bit of a military institution there, they care much more about, cool, you can build this thing for us. If you can make this, but I want to make sure that it's safe to use. Is it strong? Is it sturdy? Is it stable? And is it secure? And that was really interesting because it introduced me to a whole nother world of security testing and understanding logic and audits and assessments. And the very, very first event that we kind of ended up doing with that was called Cyber Stakes. And that was a competition hosted for all of the service academies by For All Secure and the Plaid Parliament of Poning. And I didn't even realize at the time, because I didn't realize that I was going into a Capture the Flag or a CTF event. And I didn't realize that it was being put on by like the number one team in the world at that time, Plaid Parliament opponent. They're a pretty big name in the scene. I met Tyler Nicewander. I was having dinner with him and just chatting and didn't even know who the dude was, like a celebrity in that culture. And we went to the very first time and we kind of made a fool of ourselves because we just didn't know what we were doing. A little bit of underdog, right? We just wasn't sure what all worked where and how and what a CTF even was or looked like in any of the security sense. If we were trying to do binary exploitation and all we have is like ObjiDump, a command line tool, we just weren't quite sure. So after the event, I ended up asking Tyler and some of the other folks, they're like, hey, how do we get better at this? And that was when he told me about like a lot of online, free, totally accessible training exercises and war games, stuff like Over the Wire, stuff like Smash the Stack, stuff like Ring Zero and ctftime.org to be able to find other events and other training vehicles to, kind of practice. And that really is, I don't know, what opened the floodgates or let the snowball roll even more, because then it was just fun. And that kind of set the stage from, okay, middle school, high school, college, and university. And then once I'm out of that scene, to the industry and starting a career. Thankfully, because I've been able to put in a lot of that time early on, finding a foot in the door, looking for a first role or opportunity, it wasn't too tough. I think I had a little bit to show and some competency to flex a little bit. So, hey, that was probably the springboard for me.
Yeah, very interesting. It's cool to hear your story. I've seen you around for a while, but just didn't really know how you got into it. But interesting, really cool, the CTF thing. I think people really underestimate sometimes how powerful that is if you're wanting to be a pen tester. One of the best pen testers I know locally, and he's done things as far as he does like ATM pen testing and red teaming. And so he went to like a Raytheon CTF during one of the Texas conferences, and it was supposed to be like a multi-day CTF, and he solved it within the first hour or 30 minutes and found
That's
a
awesome.
vulnerability, essentially an O-day, and he found that and solved the CTF. And it was an interesting one too, because they had like a video camera set up monitoring, I think it was around October because it was near Halloween, so they had like a bowl of candy. The camera was monitoring it, and he found a flaw and was able to exploit it to be able to get around the camera. And so they like offered him a job on the spot. But
So cool.
But like I said, I think a lot of people underestimate how CTFs are helpful, because, a lot of times when people describe the OSCP, they refer to it being CTF-like, and it's not a bad thing, because don't you think that some of those kind of scenarios are more difficult than some of the things you run into real world pen testing wise?
Yeah. I know a lot of folks, and it's a fair point. Some might just kind of poo-poo on a Capture the Flag because it is a puzzle. It is a toy. It is a game. And some folks might say, oh, that's not realistic. It's not real world. I see where they're coming from. And in some cases, right, in some events, in some competitions, that might very well be the case. Hey, you're doing some cheesy, silly steganography, or you're using some old archaic cryptography thing that just isn't in use. In my opinion, really doing Capture the Flag and being hands-on, just being on the keyboard, doing application-based practical learning to really get yourself in it in a tangible way. That's where the most learning comes from. And it teaches you much more. Soft skills is not the right word, but it's a higher level thing, right? When you're kind of fostering your own grit and determination and stubbornness and troubleshooting and debugging and problem solving, critical thinking, you might bang your head against the wall for a CTF challenge for hours or days. And that really kind of gives you a certain amount of stubbornness. So when you're doing it in the real world, whether it's penetration testing or bug bounty, et cetera, you know not to quit. Because you know, if you just keep trying something else, if you just keep poking at some other hole, something's going to fall through. Something might happen. Something might move, and you'll see, ooh, there's that lead. There's that progress that I just hadn't been able to see for the past however many hours. I think that is one really, really valuable thing of Capture the Flag. And in some cases, it's not just that puzzle or toy. There are a lot of exercises and war games now that do make it much more of a penetration testing real world environment. Hey, we've set up a whole Active Directory network for you. You can pivot from one machine to another, do some lateral movement, do exfiltration. Those I think are phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think it also, one of the things it does too, because you even have, like, just to kind of show the importance of it, you have National Cyber League that, you know, that a lot of the colleges do, and they hire from those lists. So just to kind of show how important that is to hiring managers. But one of the things I think too is it really teaches you how to give you a better idea of cryptography, because when you just read about it, you don't understand it. But it seems like when you got those different challenges in the CTFs, it helps better cement those concepts.
Totally. I think I look often at DEF CON, right? One of the world's most infamous hacking conference and hacking event. And when you get to the DEF CON Capture the Flag, it's like the World Series of hacking. Like it's the Olympics, right? And those guys are absolute ninjas. They're like wizards so far beyond me, but I think it's just so cool whether you're doing low level binary exploitation or firmware reversing or crazy shenanigans like that. I don't know. It flexes a muscle that you might not be able to do in your day job or what you already accustom yourself with. And I think that's a really strong selling point, is that you might get introduced to technology or software and hardware that you wouldn't otherwise, because it's just not part of your workflow. It's not things that you use. It's not part of your software stack or your security stack or what you're used to seeing. So it makes you very well-rounded and very diverse, and you have just so much more exposure to new things, and you get to learn quick on your feet and foster that continuous love of learning.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too. You know, a lot of companies are, you know, do their vetting or skills evaluations of potential employees. And an example of a company that does some similar CTF type stuff is Point 3.
Yeah,
because a lot of companies are using Point 3 to vet, you know, potential candidates. And actually, I had worked there for a while, and I had to go through that challenge, and it was pretty challenging and pretty difficult. But you know, I could see if someone that had experience with CTFs, it would have been as much of a challenge for them, and they would be a little more prepared for those type of assessments.
They have their Escalate platform. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Super cool. I know, because a lot of folks might have the conversation of, okay, how do I get smart on this? And they ask, is it a degree? Is it classic academia? Do I need my master's? Do I need certifications? Do I need industry stuff? I think the value that you get from kind of setting yourself in a Capture the Flag environment is a certain amount of self-reliance, and to do something different than what you might find in a cookie cutter textbook playthrough of solving a problem and solving a task. When you're trying to work through Escalate, when you're trying to work through Point 3 or company XYZ and their hiring experience, like if they throw that technical challenge at you, the way that you carve through that is by doing things that you don't find in the textbook. It just takes a little bit more experimentation and tinkering, and I think that you can grow and sharpen that outside of the classroom.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Trying to find some of those, as far as a lot of the other trainings and stuff around cybersecurity is a little easier to find in the colleges and universities, but that piece gets a little more difficult.
Yeah.
You have people like Sam Bone out in San Francisco that's teaching that, he's doing stuff at Black Hat, but
he does great stuff.
It's a little more difficult to find that education in a traditional college setting. I was teaching at a college for a while, teaching ethical hacking, web app pen testing. And so it's just kind of more difficult, but yeah, that's pretty interesting. And so, with all this experience, how did that help you during the OSCP? Did that seem to help a lot when you were going through the OSCP?
Yes. Yeah. I know there is a lot of mystique around OSCP. It sounds like this sort of, ominous trophy to chase and the holy grail to go after. It is 24 hours, right? Of heads down, you're on the keyboard, you're hacking at boxes, you're trying to make some progress. That having the CTF mentality, and while some folks should say, yes, the OSCP is CTF-like, you aren't going to be doing any pivoting. You aren't going to be doing any moving through an internal network, compromising some Active Directory environment, but you're taking advantage of vulnerabilities and exploits that you'll have to enumerate and look through. Right, you'll have to find them, and the biggest thing is having that big picture view to enumerate and find those gaps and find those flaws. A lot of times that means you got to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. So being heads down and having that grit, especially that stubbornness, that determination, that pays in dividends for the OSCP. And I mean, that is truthfully the tip of the iceberg, right? I know folks say, hey, that is a beginner level certification, and I know sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow.
So yeah, you were like the first to get the OSCE 3, isn't that correct?
Yeah, thanks so much. Offensive Security, the training body that offers OSCP, Offensive Security Certified Professional, they offer other certifications and training, right? They have their web exploitation one, they have an exploit developer one, and they have an experienced penetration tester that is much more in an Active Directory environment, doing pivoting and lateral movement and doing antivirus evasion, crafting bypasses for some sort of defensive mechanisms. Very, very cool. Lots of great stuff. And the halo of those three is what they call the OSCE 3, the Offensive Security Certified Expert. Very flattering. I was really pleased because I like that stuff. I think it's fun to take on that challenge. So it was very sweet when I had locked those in. I got an email from their CEO and they said, "Hey, John, you got it first," and it was super sweet and a wonderful thing, I guess.
That's very cool. They really did a good job, I think. I haven't gone through that, but how they changed between the original OSCE and divide out, because I guess they really concentrate on the different areas, some of the areas they used in that, but it separated out 3 different courses, and so I think there's a lot more value to it, and I think it's a bigger deal to have that certification now compared to the legacy OSCE. So as far as how long did you have to study for the OSCP? Because you had this experience with CTFs and stuff. And I know some people like myself, I was getting started in pen testing and I didn't know the hacking piece. So I took the OSCP. So it took me from probably April 2012 till June 2013 to get through it. So how much time, with your CTF background, how long did you study for the OSCP before you took the exam?
Yeah. Truthfully, it's a hard balance. And I don't mean to just pop out a number or some training duration as if it's a braggadocio thing. Like I would want to do the 90 days. I would want to do 3 months where I could be in the lab environment and write notes, like take and study, watch all the videos, comb through the course book. And I get a little obsessive about that. Like while I'm going through the videos, I almost try and write my own book with how thorough of the notes that I might take. And I'd go through the lab environment because I think that's still an additional 5 points if you do a lab report of, hey, you compromised 10 boxes in the practice arena in the lab environment. So I would carve on that. And truthfully, I guess it's not a matter of, hey, time and days, but how much time allotment can you invest? Like, I don't know if you got a chance, if someone's working a day job, if they got kids at home, if they have other obligations, it's really hard to find time to do that training and that studying. If you can squeeze in an hour a day, or maybe 3 to 4 or 5 hours a week, it's really how much can you dedicate and commit yourself to it. Because if you wanted to go all in, hey, you could speed run the thing. You might be done in a month if you're trying hard and absorbing everything like a sponge. But no, I took 90 days for their lab environment and tried to soak up as much as I could.
And I'm pretty sure you passed the exam on the first try, I'm sure.
I had, okay. Yes. No, it was good. The grit, the determination. Mm-hmm. I tell folks, hey, take a break often. I would literally, like, every hour just stand up and pace around the apartment just to clear your head, just to reset, just to revisit and refocus from another clean slate of mind. Then you redo your enumeration. Another good tidbit, if it's totally cool, I don't mean to be harping on OSCP, but I know a lot of folks might be interested in that. If you see something weird, like, hey, this machine has some program installed and that's not normal or on a default installation, take a closer look at that. It is there for a reason. And that, I think, could bring us even back to another interesting conversation of how the CTFs might vary from real world. Because in the case of a exam, in the case of a test or a challenge, the breadcrumbs are there for a reason. So you might know where the end goal is and you could track it down and find it. It's not like that in the real world all the time. Is that fair to say, Phillip?
Yeah, I agree. But I do have to say, sometimes with the OSCP and some of the CTF type stuff too, you can be tricky too, because you're trying to make it a challenge at times. So you can have those breadcrumbs that you think it leads to this, and actually there's something else. You have to make sure you look at the big picture.
Couple rabbit holes.
So this is a really great conversation, because you constantly get asked by people on how to prepare for the OSCP and certifications and stuff. So someone that's getting started out, you had a lot of CTF experience. So what would be your recommendations for someone that want to do the OSCP? Would you do any kind of preparation up front before you started the course and the lab time?
Two parts of that question. Would I do any preparation up front and sort of hold out before going after it? I might be very vocal about this opinion, but no. If you really want OSCP, if hey, you've got a goal, this is the trophy, this is the holy grail that you want, then dive into it, because the course, the training, the curriculum itself will give you what you need, and do it. Like, don't hold yourself back. Don't wait on it. It sounds so cheesy to get after it, right? But that's genuinely what you should do. I have this weird cannonball mentality for a lot of certifications and training, where I'll just dive into one and then another. But if you are looking to practice, if you are looking to prepare at any point, there is a lot of good value in some great war games out there. Like, I'm sure folks have mentioned a ton before: Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, Cyber Range, Cybersec Labs. There are a lot of great ones, and we could totally put out a list if need be, but there are so many free online resources. There are videos like from myself, from Heath Adams, I think you've had a conversation with before, the Cyber Mentor, Tiberius, tons of great people and great resources out there.
Yes, and that's interesting. You said go right after it, because some people recommend the OSCP like boxes because TJ Null has that list, and so that's. But also, I know we keep talking about the OSCP, but this is a popular subject, and I'll start getting away from that. But one of the things too, I think it's a good option now, is that they got the OSCP 365 or the PWK 365, where you get like a year's worth of lab time, and it's pretty reasonable. So I think for someone that's brand new, that may be a good option opposed to 90 days. 90 days may not be enough. And I think you could go in, and that you wouldn't really require a lot of outside stuff to prepare for it, having a year's worth of lab time.
Totally. Yeah. And whatever that person is comfortable with time and budget, you got something that looks like the best option for you.
And so on the topic of certifications, what are some other certifications that you think are good for those trying to get into the industry?
Ooh, okay. Well, hey, I have that love for offensive security, as mentioned. eLearn Security and now INE has put out some good stuff just as well. I have a few of their certifications. For folks that might say, hey, what about, CompTIA, NEC Council, with the CEH or with the Security Plus. I think those have their place, right? They're valuable and they're good, and when they need to be. I like and I love and adore when it's a hands-on training environment. There are a handful of options, right, that are just kind of a rote memorization, data dump, multiple choice test, and those have their merit. They do, but I just really like seeing the person on the keyboard, getting them actually in the learning environment and doing it for real rather than just talking about it, But I have a Security Plus myself. I have CEH. They are great when needed. So
yeah, then he's got his new certification out there. It seems to be getting pretty good traction too.
He is crushing it. I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, I'm really.
He's got some incredible stuff.
Yeah, it's really amazing how he's expanded his TCM Academy, that he's getting other creators to put stuff on there. So I've been pretty impressed. And as far as his certification goes, I noticed recently that Tenable was hiring, and actually Tenable, that was one of his certs, was one of the ones they listed.
Nice. That's incredible. He's getting a lot of traction. There are other folks that do that just as well. I know Rostamaus, he's put out his own CRTO, or the Certified Red Team Operator. Great resources out there. Just a matter of looking around, doing the Google search.
Yeah, Rostamaus's course is pretty cool, and he recently moved over to Snap Labs. And one of the beauty of that course is a lot of these other ones, when you start your lab time, it runs out in you got 90 days of lab time, 90 days from the beginning, it's done. But with his now, it's based on what you've actually used. So if you go in there and it's ran for an hour, you've only used an hour worth of lab time, which is kind of nice that, life gets in the way sometimes and you have to pause things. So at least you're not burning up lab time. So that's kind of cool.
I know he has been revamping the original CRTO course, and for a while it was sort of a back and forth between Covenant and Cobalt Strike for like a command and control framework of choice. I think now, he's got access to Cobalt Strike for every student, which is super cool. And I think he also just put out a building your own command and control framework, or C2, in C#. So lots of great elite tradecraft and very cool modern stuff from his end of the woods.
Yeah, I kind of think that's going to end up becoming like the OSCP of red teaming certs,
Yeah.
Because it's really pretty cool. I went through it last year before he switched platforms, and fortunately I had access to a Cobalt Strike license to go through it. But it's nice that they're offering that now, as well as Covenant too, because you may go to work somewhere that doesn't have a Cobalt Strike license. So that's pretty important that he's doing that. So yeah, it's good. You'd mentioned coding. So do you think it's important for people to know how to script or code that are getting started out, or is that something they can do later?
So that's a super common question, a super good one, without a doubt. Because it might seem intimidating when folks like, hey, do I really have to know how to code? Because they just might not be in that scene. When folks ask, do I have to learn how to code to be a hacker, to be an ethical hacker, to do pen testing, red teaming, etc.? The answer is no, kind of, like with an asterisk, with a big disclaimer and footnote. I try to draw this parallel, like, look, if you don't know how to code and you want to do this, cool. You can walk, right? You might be able to crawl. You're going to kind of go at a slow pace. Not bad. You're still doing it. You're still moving. But if you can script, if you can program, if you can write your own tools and have a finer understanding of what the tools that you use and do, how they work, then you can run, right? Then you're really up in the ante. It might seem kind of silly to say this, but that comes across like the literal definition of a script kiddie, right? and I don't mean to be brusque in that, but knowing how it all works under the hood and being able to recraft that and rework it and write your own, that all comes from coding. That all comes from programming and scripting. So if you don't want to, you should. You should absolutely kind of want to get smarter in that realm.
Yeah. So what do you think about, you mentioned Python. So what do you think of Golang? You think that's a good one?
Yes. I'm super glad that you mentioned. I am a huge fan of Golang. I've been trying to get a little bit sharper on it. Python has always kind of been my knee-jerk reaction, like just my weapon of choice. Hey, when there's a problem in front of me, I'll whip out the Python interpreter and carve through this. But Golang feels just as fun, just as easy to write and easy to read, crazy fast, can cross-compile to anything. I'm a huge fan of Golang. I think in the red teaming penetration testing world, I believe some of the shady, spooky stuff you might do with Golang is getting picked up a lot more from detection engines, right? Like, hey, Windows Defender might pick it up, antivirus product ABC might pick it up. I know there's a lot of hot conversations like, oh, should we be doing stuff in NIM? Should we be doing stuff in Rust? Where are you in that world, Philip, if I might ask? What's sort of your, I don't know, language of choice?
I'd kind of played around with Python some, so I really not fluent in any, but I can modify Python scripts and that sort of thing.
Nice.
But last year, right in the middle of the pandemic, I was really, I went through some Rostam Mouse's course, a couple of the Pentester Academy Red Team courses they had out, and I started playing around with Go some because I know some consultants that work for a local consulting company, and they wrote a C2 in Golang, and just hearing some of the stuff that they were doing with that, and just, I want to learn that too also because like you mentioned cross-compiling, because, a lot of times you're trying to compile things. It can be kind of tricky to compile Windows stuff on Linux sometimes, and sometimes you need Visual Studio and stuff to compile. So I thought that was kind of interesting with Golang, and the fact that, you can compile it, whereas, Python, you have to use Py2exe or PyInstaller to be able to set that up. And from what I understand, a lot of that stuff's getting caught. So I need to spend more time on Golang and actually commit to learning a language, because the mistake I make is I'll take a course, and that's the problem. I go through the course, and then everyone that gives me advice that actually know how to code or script, they're telling me just write something, figure out something you want to write and write a script, opposed to waiting until you learn everything there is to know about it before you try to apply it, getting the hands-on experience with it.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah, because I tend to want to jump right to coding and building something and making it without trying to take a step back and think about how I would architect this. Like if I wanted a good, solid, stable tool or product or an application that I could use to help make my workflow better, like, emulate and sort of go through the whole steps of some cyber kill chain attack thing and offensive security or red teaming, pen testing, whatever. I just want to dive right into the text editor and write code. Mm-hmm. And then I might kind of get lost in the weeds or just kind of stuck trying to I've built this part of the framework and I know that I need to bring something else in. And now my mind is tripping up because I hadn't taken time to plan and brainstorm and think about it beforehand. It sounds so cheesy and it sounds so dumb. And I, for the longest time, was like, no, I don't want to write pseudocode. I don't want to think about how the program works. I just want to make it. Hurry up. But in the moment, if you start to trip over yourself, it really sucks.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So a lot of people are trying to find out, or trying to find ways to get experience when they're breaking in the industry. Some people are doing hack the box and those type of things. So what's your advice for ways for people to get experience so that they can use on a resume or during an interview when they're trying to get a job?
Cool. Well, hey, I think I've beat the dead horse already on capture the flag, war games, online training environments, and ranges. We've talked a little bit about certifications. We've talked a little bit about training and education and degrees and all. I think there are still some other key components that we haven't been able to shine the spotlight on. And these are the fun ones in my mind. Show your work, right? Show your involvement, show what you've done. When you're doing a hack the box or try hack me machine, or when you're solving some challenges from a weekend to capture the flag, put it out on a blog or write articles about it or make videos to showcase, hey, I've done this. Or when you've got some security conferences coming up or some events, virtual events or live and in person, whatever it might be, see if you could squeeze in to, hey, maybe give a talk on some of the cool stuff that you've done. And I know that feels like a strange barrier. Some folks, they might not be a little spooked by the idea of giving a talk, getting up on stage. But it doesn't have to be that. Maybe you'd like to run a workshop, or maybe you just kind of want to volunteer to I don't know, help be a moderator in the Discord, or you want to greet people at the door and hand them the program. I don't know. But be a part of B-Sides events, be a part of local, OWASP chapters, be a part of any of the crazy stuff, shenanigans and conferences that might be on and about. If you can do that, if you can be part of the scene, put out your work and all that, when you go to an employer, I think they really like that stuff because it shows your passion, it shows your drive, and it shows how you've genuinely done it. You have literally something to show for it, like the portfolio, your GitHub repository, your website. In the silly case of my own, look, I have a cheesy YouTube channel, and it feels so weird to say, you're like, hey, I'm a guy with a YouTube channel, but when a real company and a real business looks at it, they're like, holy crap. This is thousands or hundreds of videos showcasing legitimate technical stuff. Hey, this guy might have an idea what he's doing. We should hire that person, that individual. So having that on your resume, being able to really document and archive and give the library and catalog of what you've done, hey, that'll really put a foot in the door. So.
Yeah, that's great advice. And one of the things I've seen recently that the mayor, Joe Helly's really been promoting is going out and doing CVEs, downloading some of the free and open source applications and finding CVEs. And someone, actually, Michael Padrick, that goes under Fearless, the handle Fearless, he recently got a job. And I think part of what helped him was having CVEs or having a CVE.
That's awesome. Yeah. Any of that great research just goes the same. And I think it's pretty cool to see it on a resume. Like, hey, dude, this guy has a couple CVEs to his name. He really knows his stuff. I think that's a great thing.
And not everyone at Pentest has CVEs. I don't have a CVE myself.
It's not an end all be all.
Yeah.
It's not like a make or break thing, but it's just kind of a cool, maybe a nice accolade. So
what do you think about like content creation? Because I've seen a lot, there's been a lot of people, like yourself. How do you think that really affects people's careers? Because, you see some people fairly new that are doing this and they seem to have some good success with it.
Yeah. Oh goodness. That's a lot. So again, I don't want to be some jerk, pretentious guy, but being able to have the outlet for content creation, being able to have that platform opens so many doors and so many opportunities just kind of come to you. There's another security content creator. His name is Live Overflow. I don't know if he's going to be huge in the hardcore pen testing, red teaming, ethical hacking scene, but still in the realm of security and security research. He works, I think, closely with Google a little bit, and Jinville Coldwin is another creator in the YouTube scene. And they had reached out and invited me to the Google Capture the Flag finals over in London. And they decided, John, look, you don't need to be a player. Like, you don't need to compete. We just like to have you there just to hang out, like just to record, maybe take your camera, just to get some footage of all the players doing the cool thing. And it was such an incredible experience being in a room full of absolute geniuses, like the hardcore, great CTF wizards and security professionals. I don't know. It's so cool to have that invitation, so flattering and wonderful to be there with all those folks. And then opportunities at conferences and events, and to join the show here with you, Phillip. Like, if I didn't have that platform, if I didn't have that content with me, I don't know if I'd have any of the things that come my way. So.
Yeah, it's very inspiring to see what, people have done, like yourself, and then some people that are newer, that a lot of their entry was based on content creation. Some people traditionally, like yourself, you've done more of the technical side, and that was just kind of something you did in parallel. But it's interesting how people are getting in, from their content creation. So that's pretty cool. So we're getting down towards the end of the show. Are there any parting comments you'd like to share with our listeners?
Oh, yeah. So if it's totally cool, I have this one tidbit that I think might be valuable. And I don't, if you want to kind of spin off of it and maybe have some other conversations, we certainly could. But I think for a lot of what we've been doing, we've been really tactical. We're talking about CTFs. We're talking about training and really hardcore stuff in the mix. I would like to just take maybe the last couple of moments to do a little bit of like big picture strategy, because it's really cool when we're talking about security as a whole, as a big umbrella term. Sometimes you pitch your red team and your blue team, good and hey, the adversary, the offense versus the defense. I truthfully see myself as a little bit of an anomaly coming on, hanging out here with you, Phillip, because like my day job with Huntress leans a little bit more blue team than it does red team. But I think the significant factor and how I might be able to contribute and be a member of that team is knowing and understanding how the offense works, knowing the adversary, knowing the tradecraft, knowing the tooling, knowing the vulnerabilities and exploits, being the pen tester and red teamer. There's a stupid, cheesy tagline that says, hey, our offense is your defense. That's just because it's the best way to play when you have a greater understanding of how an ethical hacker or a penetration tester or a red teamer emulating a real threat actor really would do their business. When we do CTFs and when we do tabletop exercises, it's easy to think, hey, it's a game. But when you take it to the real scope of security, real threat actors, real adversaries, maybe real ill-intended people trying to do bad stuff, not a game anymore. So doing all the grunt work and the hard work here, it makes us so much better when the stakes are at scale.
Yeah, great advice there. And it's interesting too, for those getting started, learning both sides are very helpful, because I kind of started out on the blue team side. And then, I think even if you're a blue teamer not really wanting to get into the offensive side, I think it's good to know that to be a better defender.
Yeah, they feed off each other.
Yeah.
The idea of the purple team, right? I am a big proponent of that.
Yeah, purple teaming is pretty valuable. I got to do that with a past job, and it's a really good way to take some of those tools out of the hands of attackers when you can go through and make sure people can't run Mimikatz from workstations in the environment, make sure that the endpoint's catching things and preventing things.
Well, hey, that was my gentle reminder. Everything that you do, everything that we do, anyone listening in might do, it's got that greater purpose. It's got that real meaning and fulfillment there. So maybe a good note to end on. I don't know about you, Phillip.
Yeah, I think that's a great spot to end. Thanks for joining me. It's been an honor to learn more about you, and thanks for sharing your story and your wisdom.
Hey, it's been lovely chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode.
BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Hacker Factory podcast with Phillip Wylie. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.